Monkey.
Now, there were a lot of rumors surrounding Deontay Wilder and his return, but now it is official. Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius, October 15th. It's on. Personally, I'm happy to see Deontay Wilder back in the ring because he is an extremely exciting fighter. I mean, in terms of recent years, I would go out and say Deontay Wilder is the most exciting fighter because of his style, because he almost guarantees knockouts in his fights. When was the last time you seen a dull fight that Deontay Wilder was involved in? You were just there thinking, oh, this is an awful fight. No, Deontay Wilder is always involved in the most exciting fights. So credit where credit's due to Deontay Wilder. Now, I personally think this is a good pick for an opponent. You'll have some people who are overly critical of Deontay Wilder. They'll come out and say, oh, well, this is just another bum Deontay Wilder's fighting. From the PBC, it's an easy win, and so on and so forth. But Deontay Wilder is coming off two back-to-back knockout losses, a really hard beating in the third fight against Tyson Fury. So he's going to need, an opponent to where he can get his confidence back up. Someone who, has skills, who is a top 30, top 25 heavyweight, but someone who he can get out there and knock out. With Deontay Wilder losing the weight he's lost, hopefully he's got his speed, because that's Wilder's main strength. People always talk about power. Power is about your mass and your acceleration. And Deontay Wilder, we can all see, he's not the biggest heavyweight, but what he does have that's superior to all the other heavyweights is the speed. So it may have declined slightly, because Deontay Wilder, what is he, 37, turning 38? I'm not quite sure on his age, but I know he's in his late 30s now. So, you would assume that maybe there will be a slight drop-off in his athleticism, but it will be interesting to see if, he's been able to maintain his athleticism and so on and so forth. We know Wilder doesn't get crazily out of shape. He's always lean. He's got the genetics to be lean. And from what we know, he lives a relatively healthy lifestyle as well. So yeah, Deontay Wilder back against Robert Helenius. Hopefully Wilder can get the win, and then we can see Wilder in fights against someone other than Tyson Fury. I mean, imagine if we got a Deontay Wilder versus an Anthony Joshua. Win, lose, or draw, whatever Anthony Joshua's result is against Usyk. Joshua versus Wilder would be an extremely exciting fight, and it's probably a 50-50 fight, the Wilder-Joshua fight. Wilder against Andy Ruiz is also an amazing fight. A lot of people want to see Wilder against Dillian Whyte. I feel like, personally, we don't need to see that fight because Dillian Whyte's punch resistance has declined tremendously, but a lot of people would still be excited, and I'd still watch Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder personally. Speaking of punch resistance, you'd have to imagine Wilder's punch resistance has gone down a fair bit. We've seen his kind of legs go in the third Tyson Fury fight, but Fury was catching Deontay Wilder with clean right hands, with very clean, good punches. So of course anyone is going to feel those punches, but you could see it had an effect on Deontay Wilder, but we can only really tell if his punch resistance has declined, when we see him fight other punches other than Fury, because we need to see how he can take shots from guys like Joshua and Ruiz and Helenius and Dillian Whyte and so on and so forth. Then we can get an indication of where his punch resistance is at, and if it's, still at a good level, or if it's declined tremendously. After the second Tyson Fury fight, I was slightly worried about his punch resistance, but his chin held up pretty good in my opinion in the third fight against Tyson Fury. Yeah, he was rocked, but those were because he was caught with big shots. So it will be interesting to see if he still has, a relatively good level of punch resistance that he showed in the third fight, or if the third fight was the fight that took punch resistance away from Deontay Wilder. with Deontay Wilder in the heavyweight division, it just makes for so many more exciting fights. The division is much more open when Deontay Wilder is in it. There's way better matchups, you can make with Deontay Wilder in it compared to with Deontay Wilder out of it. And the heavyweight landscape of supremacy is constantly changing. When Joshua beat Klitschko, people probably had Joshua as their number one heavyweight. Even before that, when Fury beat Klitschko, people had Fury as their number one heavyweight. When Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury the second time, people had Fury as the best heavyweight, Probably when Joshua lost to Ruiz, I think Wilder had just beaten Luis Ortiz. You can correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But when Joshua lost to Ruiz, the second fight against Tyson Fury and Wilder didn't happen. So Wilder was still undefeated when Joshua lost to Ruiz. And I think he was having a fight against Luis Ortiz. If not, he had already beaten Ortiz. And at that moment, people probably had Deontay Wilder as their top heavyweight. Now people probably have Usyk as their top heavyweight. With or without Tyson Fury, it's debatable. You'd probably put Tyson Fury, slightly ahead of Usyk because he's fought, a variety of top heavyweights. He's got guys like Dillian Whyte, Deontay Wilder, and Klitschko on his resume compared to Usyk, who's got Anthony Joshua and Chisora. Give or take, it's close, but some people would probably have Usyk as their number one heavyweight, and you can just see that the landscape of the heavyweight division is constantly changing. It's not been a monolithic era. People probably thought that, it'd be all one guy. It'd be either Fury would dominate, or Wilder would dominate, or Joshua would dominate. They were shocked when Usyk came and beat Joshua. It's just all about styles. Styles make fights. I think, this must have been a while ago. One time I remember I seen a Hatman Strikes Back video, and he said in the video that, I don't know if this was his opinion or he was quoting someone else's opinion, but essentially in the video he said that because of the styles, Fury beats Wilder, Wilder beats Joshua, and Joshua beats Fury. It comes down to styles at the end of the day. I don't know if you lot agree with that, but that's what he mentioned in the video, and I found that very interesting. It is all about matchups at the end of the day. I don't know necessarily if I agree with that, but, it does make sense when you look at the styles of the fighters that you could potentially see those outcomes, happening in real life. So, it is what it is. We'll see how the division unfolds. No need to speculate on who is the best now. We'll just wait until the era is over to decide who was the best. If Joshua knocks out Usyk emphatically this weekend, we'll probably all be saying, what, Anthony Joshua's back. He's got the meanness about him, and now he's the best heavyweight because Fury's retired and Wilder's been knocked out twice, and so on and so forth. So, we will see. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you happy that Deontay Wilder is back? Or maybe you're not happy with Deontay Wilder returning? Personally, I'd find it quite strange if you were unhappy with the return of Deontay Wilder, because he is such an exciting fighter. I'm not talking about Deontay Wilder the person. I know a few people, they don't like Deontay Wilder's personality. Even though they don't really know him personally, they don't like what he's shown on camera and in interviews, and so forth. But, him as a fighter, putting what you think about him as a person to the side, because you don't even really know him, are you excited that he's back? Are you not? Who do you want to see Deontay Wilder face? Would you still be up for a Deontay Wilder-Anthony Joshua fight? Should Wilder fight Ruiz if he beats Helenius? Or, is Wilder and his team, going to cherry pick? What do you think is going to happen? It's very, very exciting. All right, guys. Peace.